Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'll be talking about how I get 120 FPS with 60 Hz. I heard that people in the PS5 community were having issues with enabling 120 FPS in their games. In my case, the game I'll be testing out will be Fortnite. The recording I'll soon be playing is an uncut recording from my phone to show that I'm not faking my results. I would have used a capture card, but unfortunately I don't have one at the moment, and it's also to show that I'm on 60 Hz throughout the entire recording. Here, I'll open up my monitor settings to show that I'm on 60 Hz. Now, I'm opening the game to show that 120 FPS is not available in the game's graphics options, in essence to show that I can't play 120 FPS with the current configuration of my setup. In this part of the video, I'll be enabling two settings to allow 120 FPS in my games. One is called Enable 120 Hz Output, and we'll be setting this to automatic. Second setting is Performance Mode or Resolution Mode, and we'll be setting this to Performance Mode. Again, I'm opening my monitor settings to show that I'm still in fact on 60 Hz with the new applied settings. Now with these two settings set, we can expect there to be a 120 FPS option in our game. To further drive the point, I'll be loading into a creative hub where we can see out our FPS in real time. Once again, showing my monitor settings to show that I'm still on 60 Hz while getting 120 FPS in a loaded environment, in my case, the creative hub. Now, if this didn't fix your 120 FPS issue, there's still another option. In this case, you would have to buy an Edid Emulator to trick your PS5 into thinking that your monitor is 120 Hz. I'll have a link to the product and a video in the description that shows how to use and set up the Edid Emulator. Lastly, I want to stress the point that if you know in fact that your monitor is capable of 120 Hz, I would go about trying to fix that issue, as 60 Hz and then 120 FPS is a workaround that leaves you at a disadvantage. Some people are confused about the difference between Hz and FPS, and the general difference is that Hz is the amount of frames your monitor can display in a span of a second, and FPS is the amount of frames your console or PC is producing in a given second. Thus, the players running 120 Hz or greater and 120 FPS are going to be at an advantage over your 60 Hz and 120 FPS, because they can see all the frames produced by their console or PC that you can't, while having the same lower latency benefits as your now 120 FPS on 60 Hz, which they are on 120 Hz or greater. All in all, 60 Hz and 120 FPS is an improvement over 60 Hz and 60 FPS, but this still should be treated as a temporary solution. By this, I mean that you should eventually upgrade your monitor to a 120 Hz monitor or greater if you want to pursue competitive gaming. That'll be it for me, and thanks for watching the video.